Welcome to Scene Change, a podcast by the National Federation of the Blind Performing Arts Division. All about equality, opportunity, accessibility, and the arts. Here, you'll learn adaptive techniques from performers in the know. We are changing what it means to be blind, one stage at a time. Thank you for joining us today. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scene Change. I'm your host, Lizzy Muhammad Park, and today's episode is so special because you've probably met him before, but all the way from Maryland by way of Alabama, we've got Dezman Saxman Jackson. Welcome to the show, Dezman.
Hi, Lizzy. It's a privilege and an honor to be on the podcast.
We are so happy to have you, and we love alliteration here on the show. So we'll probably call this December with Dezman. Let's just jump right into it. You've held so many roles throughout the Federation. Every state you go to, you're very active. So now you've added your board member position on the Performing Arts Division. And I'm just curious to know, how does it differ? How is it similar to other roles that you've had throughout the NFB?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Federation has definitely been a blessing in my life from, since I was in high school. And so, as you said, I've held various roles in, chapter president and so forth, and very, very important work. I guess serving on the board as treasurer now of the Performing Arts Division is really special. One, I love the arts and performing and music and all of that good stuff. And so it's a really focused area to be a part of serving our community in. And so it's really a neat position to hold.
Yes, and treasurer is not the easiest role. I mean, you've really got to do, my goodness, you've got to be very organized and so on and so forth. And you're usually a membership guy. I know you used to do membership work in Maryland and, like you said, chapter president work. So as far as the projects or the work that you're doing on the board right now, I know you're enjoying it because you just make the best of every single situation. What's it like for anyone who's ever thought about, should I join this Performing Arts Division? Should I join the board? What is it? Could you just sort of describe, it wouldn't be a day in the life, but share with the people who could be potential future board members. What's it like to be on the board?
It's all about kind of setting the direction of the division. We're all about the membership. And so we, hold periodic what we call membership calls, but really they're, kind of special interest calls. So, for instance, we just had one about tap dancing, and we got some other interesting workshops coming up. It's about sharing information among the membership. What are the best techniques for approaching a certain performing arts that you want to be involved with. So as the board, we just set the stage. We, sometimes set the vision for opportunities and then reach out to the membership, which will hopefully be more of you out there if you're not already a part of it, to help us to build it out. And so in a nutshell, I would say that's what we're all about.
I love that. And I'm so mad that I missed that tap dancing membership call. I know it was a blast. Like, that's just that kind of information. This is why we do things like, the podcast, so that people can know the possibilities and what's out there. But you had a great segue when you mentioned techniques and alternative techniques to achieving people's performance goals. So whatever people want to do performance wise, knowing that it's possible because that is very much NFB philosophy, right? So
Absolutely.
you play the saxophone. Um, Before we jump into how you do it, what it is, that sort of drove you to it, could you share with us a little bit about your personal background and your blindness journey, your story? Where did you get up? When did you come into a positive blindness philosophy? Um, so on and so forth. So to even know that picking up the saxophone was a possibility and that you could do it successfully.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned at the beginning, I grew up in Alabama. I'm a Southern boy. I'm sure you guys can tell that from my thick Southern accent. But so yeah, I grew up. I would say I was always blind. I've certainly never had great vision. So functionally, I've always been blind. I went to public school, um, where I was again immersed in more or less the sighted world. There was only just a few other blind kids around, and so I applaud my family for connecting me with I would say some of the best teachers to teach me these skills like Braille and orientation, mobility, and things like that. Even in a public school environment. But I really didn't know a lot of, say, grown up successful blind people until, much later on in my life, really, until I started learning about the NFB in high school. Um, and so, uh, you know, I, I've always kind of I couldn't really ever hide my blindness. I didn't. I've only ever had enough sight to get me in trouble and not enough to get me out. But um, but I didn't learn to view myself as a person who happens to be blind and learn that being blind was okay. Really until I started meeting people in NFB. I started reading the Burrow Monitor, which is kind of our
Mm.
flagship publication. And I remember just sitting around when I got a computer, and I'm kind of aging myself, and sitting up all night on my dial-up connection, and just devouring the Burrow Monitor and just reading about all these blind people who were just going around and doing whatever the heck they wanted to do and just living life. And not necessarily extraordinary people. I always heard about, the ironically the Stevie Wonders and the Ray Charles,
Mm.
and those guys are, great musicians and definitely respect it. But these are just people living lives, school teachers and parents and all. And so that was just really inspirational to me. And I would say that that was a pivotal point in my life.
And you know what? High school is such a critical time when you're dealing with identity and things like that, and really caring about how others see you and things like that. So I'm sure that the Braille monitor just really boosted your confidence and things and things of that nature. Just showing you that you know what, these things are possible. I can lead a normal life. So I'm glad. I'm glad that that was the resource that was available. So when did you start to play the saxophone?
Short answer is I started playing about 6 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Ah, I see.
yes.
And what brought that on?
I've always had a love for music and instruments and things of that nature. Growing up, uh, everything was an instrument, whether that was, beating on stuff around the house, tapping on my face, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everything was an instrument. And when I first was starting to learn, about different horns and things of that nature, there was something about the saxophone that just really grabbed my attention. When I would hear it in commercials and I hear it on the radio, it's just something about it.
Hmm.
And so when it came time to play an instrument in the school band,
Hmm.
um, I I have been saying, I'm going to play the saxophone. I'm going to play the saxophone. But uh, me being who I was like, hey, but this this is also the time I could play a real drum, and so I ended up playing
Hmm.
percussion and kind of switch gears. Turns out that was a I was not much of a drummer, but it was still a blessing in disguise because I still have knowledge of percussion and things of that nature. But hey, I got the scratching itch. But
Hmm.
my love of the saxophone just continued, and so it wasn't until, as I said, just a few years ago that I was actually working with some kids one summer, and we were trying to get them out and uh, just something to do. And it's like, oh man, there's a music store up the street, and so just take them up there and look around and play around and whatnot. And so I'm there, and I'm just thinking to myself, this might be the chance. I got a little extra bones in my pocket, and
Hmm.
hey, I might just buy a saxophone. And so and that's where it all started.
Hmm.
And it's been a love ever since. I say I played a saxophone now. I think for a while it played me, but it's really been a dream come true.
Wow. This is probably going to be one of our most fascinating episodes, because you are not someone who found your instrument before the NFB. You found it after the NFB. And I wonder, this is purely speculation, but I like to speculate sometimes here on the show. Do you think, I mean, you were interested in high school, but do you think that, without this sort of NFB philosophy, the can do, I happen to be blind sort of a philosophy, that you would have just gone into a music store and picked up the sax and learned it like you did without the Federation?
There's a good chance that I may have had a lot more hesitancy about a lot of things
Mm.
in
Mm-hmm.
life that um, I find myself doing. Gosh, I, not being able to see, how am I going to figure out all these buttons and levers and things like that? How am I going to even, uh, get the courage to go to the store or lead a group to the store?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That is fascinating. So, how did you learn? Did you just sort of just buy it and learn on YouTube? Did you hire someone to teach you? What was your method for learning?
A lot of it was self-learning.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, I had I had a pretty strong background in music, having, played the keyboard and just kind of messed around on other instruments and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. The drums and mm-hmm.
So, I always tell people once you learn how to play one instrument, it's just kind of a matter of, um, you have the skill that the foundation
Mm-hmm.
of music. It's just a matter of which tool am I going to use to build a house, and just I need to learn how to operate
Mm-hmm.
that tool. And so, a lot of that theory, transferred over to the saxophone. And so, with the help of, for sure, YouTube and just some great folks I end up following on there, I learned the basics. I later on took, some formal lessons uh, privately from some of these people that I was following, just to, that's never a bad idea, just to make sure, you're using, the best technique and things of that nature. But for the most part, yeah, it's been a lot of self-taught and just transferable skills.
Did you find the YouTube videos pretty accessible, or did you have to use, I mean, nowadays we have Ira, but some sort of a service or assistant to sort of describe what was happening in the videos? Or how did you find the YouTube videos when you were teaching yourself?
I found them to be pretty good actually.
Okay.
There was a couple of folks on there that I follow who just happen to be, pretty descriptive when they describing the,
Mm-hmm.
layout of the keyword and things of that nature. And a lot of once you know, the very basics,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the technique is very much just uh, a tactile experience. How do you manipulate your mouth or your armature to do certain techniques, or how do you
Ah.
flinch on this particular key to make a certain effect. So just just by nature, it tends to be more of a tactile feel hearing experience.
I have a feeling that we're gonna get some emails of people asking us, well, why didn't you ask him who he followed on YouTube? They were descriptive. Do you remember any of the people? Like, would you, anyone, do you remember any of the saxophone teachers on YouTube? And would you, who you would recommend? Do you remember their names
Absolutely.
or no?
So Jay Medcalf, um,
Okay.
he has a YouTube channel called Better Sax. Um, was one of the primary people that I still learn things from today. And so Jay is just a really good, just plain uh, language. He just very descriptive and just and so I would certainly recommend him. Um, let's see. There is I know I'm gonna get off here and say, oh, that's another good one. But
I know.
Scott Paddock is another. He actually lives in Baltimore, but
Oh,
he
wow.
was another person that I first found on YouTube, and I actually ended up taking some private instruction from him later on. But yeah, and there's several
Super
other
cool.
people out there, but I can definitely
Yeah, yeah,
recommend
no,
those
that's
two.
that's plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the recommendation. I just knew that if I didn't ask, I would get those emails. So, so thank you for that. So, how often do you get to play and or to practice and perform?
Oh, well, I endeavor to practice like a
Mhm.
good student on a daily basis. But that doesn't always happen. But I at least can say I get it in a few times a week if anything. Um,
Good, yeah.
I to anything that you're learning, it's better to just a little piece of advice to get in 20 minutes, every day if you can, versus,
Mm.
2 hours every 2 weeks, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of how my practice works out. I do get to perform, occasionally. What I love about playing music is that it's not my job.
Yeah.
So I it's very much something that I uh, get to love and just kind of make it that other part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a labor of love. Um, and so I would say you know pretty frequently I'll get to play like an open mic night. Those are some of my favorites. I like there's some local restaurants here that do those. Um, every now and then I'll get to play like at a church event. I've got to play in a friend's
Mm-hmm.
wedding coming up.
Wow.
So by day, I well, I feel like I do several things, but one of the things I do is I teach orientation and mobility, um, and so one of my clients who lives in like a retirement community, I was going to see one day, and I just happened to have my saxophone with me. I was taking it, to the shop after I was leaving that place. And so we got into conversation. He was like, "Yeah, you should come and play for us sometime." And so one thing I'm excited about is I'm going to get to go and play for them and just play some holiday music and such. So I just love um, doing little things like that. I probably won't be, a Kenny G out there anytime soon, who I got to meet a couple of weeks ago, by the way.
Oh, wow. What was that
Yeah.
like?
But I love it.
Wow, that must have been a super, super cool
Oh,
experience. But you know what? It's so relevant, doing events like going and playing, a holiday event at a retirement community, or just, all sorts of, some people will, I know the Enoch Pratt Library will sometimes host people, and that's also, for those of you who don't know, that's in Baltimore. But there are just all sorts of places, for people to perform on the holidays. And shameless plug, we do have a former December episode all about getting the gig, and they do discuss holiday gigs a lot as a great way, to put yourself out there. Um, I also like that you mentioned open mics. Now, that's something that we have honestly never discussed on the show. Um, what is that like? I'm fascinated, before you answer that question. I'm fascinated by this episode for got three reasons now. One is your position, and your experience in the NFB. Of course, that ties into your day job as an O&M instructor and things like that. When you think about confidence building, meeting people, mingling, so on and so forth. And then there's the piece where you're doing this as a hobbyist, and we don't get enough hobbyists on the show. I myself am a hobbyist, which is why I love just learning about all these different instruments, dance styles, et cetera, et cetera. You're making time for it. And then, you have your position as treasurer on the board. These three factors coming together just make for such a unique and just a really rich experience. So, I want to hear more about this open mic. I'm sure that, your confidence from your day job mixed with your love for music just on a personal level. What is this like? What's it like? You walk in, because people are scared. The reason why I'm so fascinated is people, they're uncomfortable walking into an open mic.
Sure.
And this is, you know what I mean? Um, you don't know what the audience is going to be like. They're just, they're coming, they're drinking a coffee, they're hanging out with their friends, they're, having a beer, whatever they're doing. People are nervous. And then, people would say, oh, you never know what kind of a reaction you're going to get as a blind person. So what is this like? You're going in. Set the scene for us. This,
Yeah.
in your best audio description voice, you know?
So typically you would um so I'm thinking of this one particular restaurant that
Hmm.
has it, and so it's I decide to go have dinner. I may or may not uh go with a friend just because, I enjoy
Hmm.
experiencing things with other people, but um
Yeah.
and so, upstairs they're having, you can order your dinner, and
Hmm.
then at various times they will have folks come up and sing or play their instruments or do poetry or and whatnot. And
Hmm.
so, um, at any point during this designated time, um, I would go up and kind of get in the queue to go and do what I'm going to do. Um, and so, uh, it could take different forms. So I've had situations where I say, hey, I'm going to give you this backing track if you'll play it, while I'm up there. Or
Mhm.
sometimes I'll go, and this kind of speaks to that whole uh, social aspect of it. Somebody will perform up there, like there'll be some musicians performing, and so I'm talking to them afterwards, and good job, yeah, that was awesome, whatever. Um, and then before you know it, we're signing up to go back up there and play together, and they invite me to join in with them.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so yeah, it is typically how it works. My experience is everybody's um, always supportive of
Yeah.
it's uh, the community supporting the community, other musicians or just people who love music, and it's just really a great time to enjoy music, to share music, and to network for sure.
Mm. So you've had a really receptive, it sounds like, crowd and fellow performers as well have just been very just cool, just a good community, it sounds
Absolutely.
like. You know. Wow. Wow. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that you recommend it. I can't wait, to hear about more people doing open mics. But before we switch subjects, would you usually sort of go to the restaurant first and kind of feel it out to make sure that it was a good crowd, or do you just kind of say, "Oh, they're hosting an open mic. I'm gonna bring the sax and let's go," kind of thing?
Um, Sometimes I've kind of done both in a sense. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I've just showed up. I know they're doing open mic, and other times I've just I've gone and maybe learned about that they're just happened to show up when an open mic was going on, and so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll just, hey, I'm gonna sit this one out and just kind of enjoy it, and we'll we'll
Just
we'll,
enjoy it, yeah.
we'll consider it next time. And so I've had the
Wow.
opportunity to do kind of both.
I
Yeah.
love it. I absolutely love it. So we're coming to one of my favorite parts of the show, and we haven't done this in a while. Funny enough, we haven't done this since our December episode, All Things Strings, and I think that was in our first um, year of producing Scene Change. But we are going to do an instrument description, and for those of you who don't know, for those listeners who don't know, essentially, people really take for granted different, instruments and things like that. They're like, oh, we can identify a saxophone when we hear it. But for me, I've never personally seen a saxophone. So I would love just to have the full detail, top to bottom. What does it look like? What are the keys? How are things shaped? And then once you're finished describing the instrument, how do you play it? Of course you put your mouth to it, but what do people need to know? Is there some sort of, I don't know, a mouth formation or something that you need to make in order to produce the sound correctly, so on and so forth? Just give us all of the details on the saxophone itself.
If you could picture a an upside down candy cane, you kind of have what's called a bell. That's kind of the open end of it that bows down, like the crook of the candy cane, and then the straight part of the candy cane. I got this description from actually a kid when I
They
was
give the best description sometimes.
yeah. So kids teach us a lot.
Hmm.
So the long part of the candy cane, that's what comes up and eventually turns at a right angle going towards your mouth. So it kind of comes, and so I'll go the other direction. It kind of comes
Hmm.
out from your mouth, um, down, straight down, and then it
Hmm.
curves under to point
Hmm.
up in the bell. So
Wow.
it's like maybe if anybody knows what a print letter J is shaped like, it's kind of like that as well. It's a conical instrument, they call it. So it starts off really narrow from like the mouthpiece, and it gets really wide as it goes out, which makes for some of the interesting uh, sounds that makes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so along the body, along that long part that comes down, kind of in front of your chest, is kind of where all the key work is, all the keys that you press down. And so you have different types of keys. You have some round keys they call the pearls that are kind of in the middle of the horn. You have some keys at the very top that are like palm keys that I mean, you use you get all your your body parts into playing the saxophone. There's some
Wow.
keys that your palms press that are kind of elongated. There's other keys on the side that are kind of more squarish, that are side keys. There's some um, spatula shaped keys that are more um, towards the bottom and so forth. And so um, essentially you have certain keys that your left hand plays. We
Mm-hmm.
call it a left hand stack, and certain keys that your right hand plays. There's a key on the back that's called the octave key that raises um, the pitch
Oh.
a whole octave. So if you were to play like a G, for instance, um, you'd get one sound, but if you add the octave key to that, you'd hear that same G, but at a higher pitch.
So cool.
Yeah, the way it's played, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a miracle I can even get a sound out of the saxophone from when I first started. But they call things like the saxophone and the clarinet and even the flute woodwind instruments,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because traditionally the mouthpiece itself was made out of wood. Now they're made out of uh, all kinds of materials, anything from hard rubber to metal. Um,
Oh.
but also traditionally the reed. So there's a part of the mouthpiece that goes on called a reed.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of maybe a really narrow strip of wood that that that's really thin at the opening of the mouthpiece. And so that's what produces that's really the core of what produces the sound is by uh, kind of vibrating that reed by the air that you put through the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
And so your bottom lip kind of vibrates that reed, and then by the different changes you make in the body of the saxophone as you're blowing, by pressing keys and such, that determines the sound that comes out.
Wow. And is it a pretty heavy instrument? Like, because you're holding it up, right? Like the whole time. So you get your muscle workout doing that, or is it pretty light?
It depends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so if I can go back just on one tiny thing on
Mm-hmm.
the description of a saxophone. So what I just described is typically the shape of uh, there are different voices of the saxophone. So that's the alto,
Ah, yes. Uh-huh.
tenor saxophone, baritone. Um, there is a soprano saxophone
Mm-hmm.
that's they do make curved ones like the way I described, but typically the soprano saxophone is just a straight horn. Like if anybody know what a clarinet, the shape of a
Mm-hmm.
clarinet,
Mm-hmm.
it's just straight out, just a
Mm-hmm.
long kind of stick shape. And so um, the soprano, of course, it's the smallest of like the common saxophones, so it's a fairly light one, fairly light horn. Um, the alto bigger, so it's a little heavier, but not too bad. Um, tenor is definitely you start noticing that it's a bit heftier
Mm-hmm.
horn, but it can also vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, depending on how the saxophone's constructed. There are some that are lighter than others, but most people are able to, kind of build up the muscle strength to hold it. You will typically anything beyond, say, the soprano saxophone, um, play it on a neck strap or like a harness, and
Ah.
so that's helping to support.
Uh-huh.
support the horn. Yeah.
All right. Wow. Thank you for that description. Very well done. And this is why I love to get my descriptions from blind people. I feel like we give, if I do say so, myself, I feel like blind people give the best descriptions. We know what's actually useful and helpful. And that was awesome. And actually, as you were describing it, I realized, oh, wait, I have seen a saxophone before. I just thought it was a different instrument. So that was so cool, to have that clarification. But before we let you go, if anyone else has questions for you or would like to follow you or, see some of your performances on social media, how could they best, hear more about your story and what you're up to?
I do Facebook,
Hmm.
pretty keep up with that pretty good. So sometimes I will post performances I do on there, or just hey, I have a whim to play this new song I've been working on, and I just want to share it with the world out there. And so
Hmm.
I'll post. So you can certainly find me there. I think you can just look me up, Dezman J. I am on Twitter somewhere, or X, but I'm probably less so active on that platform.
Mm.
Um, you can certainly reach out to me via email. I'm happy to chat with anybody about music or saxophone in specific. It's Jackson.Dezman, that's Dezman @gmail.com. So yeah, that was
Those are the best ways to get in contact with you.
absolutely.
Awesome. And we're going to end the episode with a holiday selection played by Desmond right now. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm Lizzy Muhammad Park again. Thank you to our producer, Drew, and again to Desmond for joining us and telling us all that we need to know about playing the saxophone. This show in a nutshell says, just get out there and do it. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you. This has been another episode of Scene Change.
I'm Caitlin McIntyre, President of the National Federation of the Blind Performing Arts Division. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Scene Change. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and visit our website at nfb-pad.org. There you'll find links to our social media, membership, and resources for blind performers. Thanks to everyone who makes this show happen. Scene Change is produced by Shane Lowe, Joe Schuneman, Precious Perez, Chris Nussbaum, Seyoon Choi, and Aaron Jordan, with music by Ryan Strunk and Tom Page. Remember, you can be the performer you want. Blindness is not what holds you back. We'll see you next time.